So welcome to ECOTALES, review of the pre-production work in progress. This is the title for today's meeting. Today is the 22nd August, Thursday. What we want to cover are the visual boards development for animation, the shortlist, the short reference board, the mood board, and the animation, the thumbnail storyboard. This is where we left it last week. I'll just repeat what I had said earlier now that we're recording. And for the purpose of the record, we want to try to convert the written story from its script format into a visual story. And this is central to the success of the final animation. Now, that translation happens through a series of emotional appeals and you can argue functional, practical messaging. The emotional appeals will be captured in the mood boards. The mood boards are not definitive, but at least they give us a sense of the feeling that we want to portray within the scene in every act. And of course, the shortlist, which informs now the references for the shots, will give us a sense of how we want to cinematically walk this journey using the camera. So this combination of emotions and you can say cinematic language, visual language, is what we want to use to communicate, at least to the animation team, exactly how the story should unfold. Now that should be done in a way that the drama is a vehicle to carry the message of the client. The message of the client, as we know, I'm just saying it for clarity, is twofold. On one hand, amongst Generation Z, is to create a sense of advocacy in them so that they feel that they own the narrative of keeping the city clean, or maybe even better, managing waste disposal, and they feel they own it. So, an advocate of that is an activist, someone who will educate people on the ground about how they litter, how they dispose wastes, that kind of thing. So how do we create this kind of transformation effect? But the second one is to educate them. The Generation Z needs to have the education on different methodologies and ways that we can dispose garbage, but on the other hand, should understand the harmful effect of not doing it. All right, so these are the things we want to carry. So the messages are quite, precise, and we have to soften the landing in a way that makes it something learnable by watching an animation. The generation we're targeting is aging 13 years old to 29. That's the age range. So the challenge is that one, and we need to translate the script that we have into a visual narrative that can carry this kind of message. So I've said that for the purpose of understanding. We're recording this so anyone who watches it can get a sense of exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's good to just, as you're preparing Purity, to understand that in Kenya, the market for animation is really on the side of design. When I say that, I mean trying to use animation as an instrument to bring about meaningful change. That's where the market is for animation in Kenya, maybe for East Africa. It's not very strong in entertainment per se, but in entertainment, in communication entertainment, or in the transformation entertainment, in these kind of fields or areas, animation is useful. So this is probably where we expect there to be a growth in the kind of work that we're doing. But if that's the case, then we have to understand how to use animation as a vehicle to construct meaning at the touch point of the problem. In this case, we have to understand the problem and then, of course, craft an animation production story that will carry that message and solve the problem. Okay, so are you ready? Or you can tell us how long?
Sorry, please just.
Yeah, say it again.
I was asking you to just repeat the question.
I was asking you, Purity, whether she's now ready. And Nicholas, if you have anything, maybe you'd like to tell us something. Have you done anything on the script, any changes, or do you have any ideas that you want to do on the script?
Not really.
Mhm.
Maybe unless you guys have anything for me, maybe just look at the third act. I'm not completely satisfied with it, and then maybe you can give me your feedback in the next meeting. And
Well,
then also by the next meeting, I should have the reference board.
okay, if I remember right, the last meeting on the third act, the biggest issue with it was that it ends on a, you could say, passive note. And we wanted to end on a high note. And in some ways, to introduce the second episode. In some ways, it's really an opportunity to whet people's appetite for the next episode. That's what how it should end. And in my mind, I think it should not end suddenly like that. There should be some build up to that ending. So in some ways, the end is a new beginning, and that new beginning starts with a serious problem, and you want to raise the temperature into that problem to leave people thinking possibly. If we can, that would be great. So the audience is kind of actively concerned, curious about what's going to come. If we can achieve that, that's a great way to end. That way there'll be a buzz, I think, about episode two, and
Okay,
there should be
I have an idea.
yeah.
I'll maybe shoot it for you by the next meeting.
Mhm.
And then, but I don't want to end it on a cliffhanger, but I'll look
Yeah.
for an idea where because you said you wanted every episode to be independent. So I don't want to use a cliffhanger because also is a lot generic. So I'll look for a way to end it, and I kind of had an idea to set up the next episode. So let me sit on it, and I'll show you by the next one.
All right. Even as so, when we meet, it's just a chance to share and discuss. But even if you do it and upload it, um, I'll be checking out the library, so I'll be able to see. I'll check the folders to see what you've done, and if you've done it, we can still discuss prior to the meeting. And then when we meet, of course, we go in deep. But one thing I'll say though, I'm not averse to using a cliffhanger. You know, the goal here is to leave people with two things. One, an appetite for the next episode. That's one. I seem to have lost my connection. Yeah, it looks like I've lost my connection. It seems I lost my connection for a minute. Yeah. Yeah, Nicholas, your hand is up.
I don't know what happened, if it's
Yeah.
on my side or yours, but I couldn't hear you for a while.
The internet went off. It said I'd lost my connection.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that then.
All right. I'll say it again. So the goal, I would say, is that we aim to, you know, um, whet the appetite of the audience at the end of the episode so that there's a high level of anticipation for the next episode. That's the goal. So I would not be against using anything that achieves that goal. In other words, if we were to use a cliffhanger for that, that's okay. That's okay. When I say that every episode needs to stand on its own, it means that every episode must have a deliverable by way of the goal. The goal is to transform Generation X's thinking so that they become advocates of this message. So we should be able to measure that. What have you transferred, or what are they? What's the change in their thinking that we can measure, so that we can do some tests on that. That's what I mean by it should be complete. It must have that component. And then the other component is that they must be educated on waste disposal management in some way. So we need to have a sense of what is it that they will have by way of knowledge in waste disposal management. All right. So those two aspects, the educational aspect and also the, you can say, measurement of the learning that has taken place, needs to be a component of every episode, including episode 1. And it would be insufficient for us to have a great message or a great animation with a great story that has no measurable impact that we can speak of. Okay, so the client's paying for that. That's what I'm calling complete. So whatever devices we use um, is in play. So if you find a way of doing it without a cliffhanger, it's okay. But if you have one, that's also good. As long as we leave people in a state of wanting and curious or curiosity, or even a state of conspiracy. Sometimes we can get counter narratives coming from the viewership, which is great because they're talking. And then, of course, now episode 2 can be crafted and based on that. Okay, so that's the goal. If it's understood, then um, if we align ourselves well, then I think the client will be quite happy. I don't think they will go against anything that is strongly aligned to their own objectives. Yeah.
Okay, Sawa. Thank you. Look into it.
All right. We're still waiting for Purity. So Purity, when you're ready, just start sharing.
Yeah.
If you're having difficulty, you can also tell us. Oh, I see you're sharing now.
Okay. So this is the short list I worked on for Act 1. But as today was thumbnailing, I started seeing that some things weren't going so, like it's, how do I put it? When you start actually visualizing how the sequences are going, I started noticing that some of the descriptions and the shots that I had put in weren't like melting into each other how you'd like expect them to. So I did some changes in the thumbnails, but not on the script yet, on the shortlist yet. So I started the shot, the whole sequence with an establishing shot of. It does start with them being in this field. According to the script, it's like Shiro discovered this area. So it starts with a panoramic view that's showing the vast field and then how the weather looks like. So it describes the field with like marram soil, grass, and then some scattered trees here and there.
Okay.
So
one small comment, Purity. This is now coming from the script, right? All this.
Yeah, the scriptures.
Okay. Have you visualized any of it? Have you done any of the thumbnails on this?
Yes.
Okay. I would suggest you take us through the thumbnails.
Okay.
It means you have to share again.
So I had worked on with the link that you had shared, but I realized it kept, I don't know, how do it kept.
You were getting errors?
Yeah, like some type of error, like it just stops and then it says like you're running out of memory or something.
Did you save it on your machine?
Huh?
Did you save it to your machine?
Yes, I do have it in my machine, but I don't know if the link is going to show exactly what I have.
Yeah,
But I
if you,
just share it from my side.
yes, if you open it from your side, we will see. That's okay.
Okay.
As long as you have it, that's okay. And you can always share with us the link that is coming from your side, and then we will see it based on that. But we will check out. Nicholas, you will check out to see if you have the same information that you shared.
Okay.
All right.
So there is Act 1, Order Beneath the Trash.
Okay.
A minute. Okay.
Yes, go ahead. We're seeing everything.
Okay. So we have the first panel, which is the panoramic view of the vast field. The camera pans across, revealing what exactly is in the field. And then we are introduced to Njoro, who is dribbling the ball. You zoom into a close-up of him and how he controls the ball. And then we see Kolo coming in to start tackling and try taking the ball away from Njoro. And then their sister Shiro is watching from a far distance. Yeah. In shot 5, we see Njoro kicks the ball with too much force, and then it flies across all the way to Shiro, who is standing at the far right. And then she catches the ball, and at that point, she's like really annoyed because of what they're doing. The camera zooms in to the two of them, but before that, we see Shiro gesturing to them. There is the voiceover where we hear Shiro saying, "What's wrong with you boys? Go and play over there." She's holding the ball in her arms at that point. It zooms in to show the reaction of the two boys as they get lectured. So then we see Shiro kicks the ball angrily away, and then it sails all the way over to the edge of the field. And then it splashes on sewer water. Like they don't see it as it splashes, but yes, the camera will swing to show where the ball lands. We get a zoom in of Shiro, like she's like surprised as to how far the ball went. And then we have Kolo panicking, and then he's like, "Now look at what you did. Go get the ball, or I'll tell Dad." We get a close-up shot of Shiro. She scoffs and then rolls her eyes. She walks to the edge. That's the point where I reached, where she's walking to the edge of the field to go and see where the ball landed.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so there are good things in what you've done. I like it because it's continuous. There's a sense of continuity, and the camera is also consistent. So I think it's flowing. I think that's good. In terms of layout, I think it's natural for you to have done what you did, to move from left to right in your layout. But we have to print this for the client as A4s, as PDFs, like a book. So you'd have to organize this to fit on A4s, which means you have like 3 cells at the top, or 3 frames, 1, 2, 3, going from left to right. And then below that, you have another 3. So you start with 1, 2, 3, then below 4, 5, 6. Then you move to the next block. And that block is the same. So now 7, 8, 9 on top, followed by below 10, 11, 12. So the blocks of 6, as if you're arranging them on an A4. But what you've done for presentation is good. If everything is online and there's no printing on hard copy, this is fine. But we would have to package this on hard copy for not only the client, but also the crew when they come, to have an offline option. Yeah, so I think that part of it is something which is rearranged. But so far, I think it's flowing well. But I'm interested in the drama. So, Nicholas, your own take on the drama. Are you able to follow what Purity is presenting? We don't hear you. Yeah, we don't hear Nicholas. Are you speaking? Yeah, I think there could be a problem on his side. Um, yeah, I have no issues with it. The thing that we just need to be keen on, um, you, Purity, is that when you're telling a story using animation, you're implementing animation principles. And some of the classic principles that are being implemented are the ones for, first of all, continuity and consistency. This is continuity is a big principle, but you've implemented it well so far because things are flowing. No sudden change or sudden jerk in the story. The story is at least flowing. But the principle of, let's say, exaggeration is important for animators. And you need to try to tell your story the way animators tell stories. Right now, it's being told the way filmmakers tell stories. Filmmakers don't don't have the benefit of exaggeration really, and it's not part of the whole thing. So, for us, the animators, the crew, is going to be asking themselves, where can we exaggerate an emotion so that the emotion is strong? Or where can we suppress it so that it's very subdued? Because the next instant, they want to make it very pronounced. You see, that's the kind of question. So they want to suppress emotions and make them pronounced. So you need to give them opportunities to do that. Um, yeah. So I can see some places where they can, because when you do these close-ups, that is an opportunity because an animator can cut into that close up very quickly and cut into eyes and then suddenly create a feeling of, let's say, shock just by cutting in very fast. Yeah. Nicholas, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, first of all, I really love this. I think it's really nice to see it coming into shape. And then the one comment that I would have is, and it lines up with what you're saying, that's what I was thinking was a good time to say it,
Mhm.
is there's a way we can introduce mystery here so that we don't show the dump yet, in the sense that when the ball goes over, we can see it from the perspective maybe of Shiro, where we just see it going over the edge. Because if when you're reading the script, when Shiro goes to the edge to look down before she refuses to go for the ball, it's a really dramatic moment. And we don't even see what she's looking at, we just see her reaction. So then she walks up there and then she has this sort of fearful reaction on her face before she refuses to go for the ball. And then that's when we can see the sort of um, garbage for the first time.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
I
know
agree
if
with that. That also is an opportunity to exaggerate. So that's not bad. That's very good. And it also can be part of the style of this because if we're going to do it here, we can keep doing it. Where before we introduce what people should see and know, comes some kind of anticipation that makes people wonder, why is she shocked? Why is she curious? Why is she doing that? We can make it part of our thematic style for animating. So that's not a bad idea. That's you who's drawing the line, Nicholas? Or is that Purity?
that's purity.
Oh,
Lightly.
I see. Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good to me. We can all make notes on this. So just feel free. That's the idea. It's collaborative. If we don't see what she's seeing, she can share with us this link. Then we'll get to see. Maybe Excalibur has changed the link. We're also learning Excalibur. Yeah, I think that's a good idea because you have introduced anticipation or a moment where we can really play around with anticipation, and that's another animation principle. So let's have that in the story where we create something before the real thing. So someone looking with big eyes before we see what they're looking at, or somebody looking curious or shocked or laughing before we see what they're laughing at. That's not a bad thing if we use it
But
as,
it's important for Shiro's character
yeah.
that it is in between of fear and it's like fear and disgust. Like she sees, it's like she almost would have gone for the ball, but she sees what's happening, and to her, it's like trauma almost. And she says, then, but she doesn't show it to her brother. She just sees it. We see her see it, and then from there, she casually is like, "Nope, I'm not going for it," and walks away and leaves.
Uh-huh.
So it's an opportunity to start showing her character, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So that and then after that, now we then now see the downside. So we kind of like have this little happy moment before we even get introduced into the setting.
Okay, so that's not bad. And I'm also getting some other subtleties about her character because you're saying that she is trying to hide her real expression, her real feeling from her brother. So that's a protectiveness, maybe. She doesn't want them to see her fear or her vulnerability. It's interesting. But because you're saying that, we do need opportunities where we can try to bring it out, um, where she corrects or self corrects just because she has to hide something. Yeah, that kind of makes her more human. It's an interesting aspect, but I like the idea of humanizing these characters. So, so yes, and maybe it can be written into some of these notes so that we don't lose that nuance. So there's the main character where she has fear, she has maybe caution, but at the same time, there's the subliminal underlying character type, which is hiding what she doesn't want to show her brothers, and it suggests that she has vulnerabilities and she doesn't want them to know, such things. So it's good. It humanizes the character, but we have to capture it in the notes, I think, so that we don't lose it when the animators read this script or read this storyboard.
Yes, and then
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
this is more of a question.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I know it's not discussed, but you said that you'll show the weather,
Yeah.
and that was actually nice. I didn't think about that. I found that interesting. What's the weather like in this? Because if we do show the weather, it allows us to create a mood.
Yeah, we can show weather for the purpose of mood, for sure. But this is not a climate change message, so we won't focus on weather. But if we want to create a mood with weather, that's okay. The time of day, what time of day is this one? The season.
As for me, I thought it was like an evening
Okay.
because when we see Joro leaving the dump site,
Mhm.
it's like Mr. Munga also goes to their home around the evening. So I think it's probably the afternoon towards evening.
All right. So in the notes, mention that it's evening so that we know. And then, of course, yeah. So, Nicholas, what were you thinking we can do with weather to at this moment?
So I think firstly, I agree with Purity. It's like afternoon because afternoon going to evening, and then we shift to night. So it's like I don't know. Maybe we can say three.
Okay.
Um, I wasn't really thinking much about the weather. It's just when Purity said that the opening shot is the shot of the environment showing the weather,
Yeah.
just hit me that we could then create a mood so that maybe we can make it a sunny day just so it looks like a bright, happy, nice day before all the drama that will take on later when it starts getting night.
Okay.
It can be like not a clear sky, but like a sunny day.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. All right, Purity. So I think this is so far so good. But see what you're doing as creating opportunities for us to create exceptional animation moments. So if you can do things where you can say, here we can have anticipation, here we can have, let's say, follow through action. A follow through action is an action that reinforces an action. So if you can see moments for that, um, for example, if this guy falls, there's a place where I think Kolo falls down, and maybe he falls on his head and he's falling in mud. The follow through action to a fall like that, if we fall with him and we are showing his head, would be mud falling on his head. So he falls down, he's already upset, but then mud falls on his head. That's the follow through action. And you can have another follow through action of trash. Trash falls on his head. So, but it's funny in a way. He's a funny guy anyway, so that's kind of funny. But at the same time, it's one of those moments where we can introduce an animation principle, which is reinforcing that issue. Now, what is it that we're enforcing? It's his character. He's upset, but at the same time, he's funny. So he's doing a funny thing. We are reinforcing the uh, him being upset, but we're also reinforcing the funniness of the moment. Okay, so we need to use animation principles to bring out the fun part, which is one, you could say, extreme of this, but also the serious messaging that is about to come. We need to hold the attention of Generation Z. That holding of the intention is not something incidental, it's something planned, intentional. We're saying on these funny moments, we're holding their attention. In these, you could argue, pensive character building moments or character development moments, like with Shiro, we are holding their attention. And there's some educative, interesting things, like with Joro. Joro is the one who is in touch with Mother Nature. How we transition into all that can be interesting. We had discussed introducing a kind of ambience, which is different when he's in that zone and talking and and hearing what ants are saying. You see, so that moment in the zone, we can transition. That would be special effects. But in the narrative, how does the narrative adjust to cater for entering into the zone? You see, that will raise curiosity. That could raise interest if we do it well. And we need to do it in a way that will make people curious. They want to see Joro entering the zone. You see, and it's a pivotal moment because that's when all this educative stuff happens. So from all this human stuff, now comes the conversations with Mother Nature. Okay, think of it that way. And when we know that we're having these moments, let's think of the animation principles to bring out how we exaggerate those moments or how we emphasize them so that it becomes recognizable by the audience and even understood by them more clearly. Okay, so emotional appeal, we exaggerate that or we bring them out using animation principles. Entering into the zone, those are special moments. Um, we bring out using animation principles. But character development, like Shiro, like Kolo, even Joro, because Joro is reflective. So I think his character is consistently reflective throughout the entire series, and it's a very important character because that's the point where the message from the client um, meets the fun or meets the drama. So I think we should also build that character type around Joro. So let's think visually like this, and then we knit it together into something. I think, Nicholas, you've done a good job in making it something believable. So it's a believable story. But now we need to make it have memorable moments. Yeah, go ahead. I see your hand is up.
Um, I had it's a question. Maybe it might be a bit far from this.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask:
Mm.
do we have an intro? So this is an intro. I don't know what they call it, but do we have? Is it something that we look into doing, or maybe something we'll discuss later? I'm not sure.
No, for sure, we need it. You're talking of an opening montage for this. Yeah, we need that.
There we go. An opening sequence. Yeah.
Yeah, we need that for sure. But it's something that we'll give to the animators when they are here. I mean, we're not designing it; we're designing the story. But yes, we must have it. And even you could argue we need to have a kind of ending style, not so much of a montage, but an ending style, so that we know how we end. And I think I would ask that what we do in the opening and what we do in the ending should be as far as possible unique, but very interesting and memorable to Generation Z. You know, so we don't want to be predictable on that. We want it to be kind of different, and especially with the opening montage. So we will have that, but it'll be the subject of discussion at some point. The animation crew, I'm trying to put them together now, but it'll be, I have put it together in 3 weeks' time. In 3 weeks' time, that will be on the, I think, 8th of September, around that time. We'll meet the animators, we'll bring them on board, and they'll meet us so that we can brief them. They can start to weigh in and discuss. We'll be still in pre-production, but they will start with us on pre-production entering into production. And it's a bigger crew in the sense that we have the comic we have to do as well. So this storyline is the core, this one, the one for the animation. But the comic feeds off this one. And we're calling the comic series eye view. Eye view simply means that it's the eye view of Mother Nature. In this case, the first, you can say, edition is going to be an ant's eye view. That's what we're developing. So when they come in, it's going to be animators and illustrators working, the illustrators working on the comic and the animators working on this. But they will weigh in on the story and give us their own interpretation. But in some ways, their job is to apply those animation principles based on the opportunities that we have set on this storyboard for them to implement the principles. That's what we're saying. But they will work from emotional beat to emotional beat to bring out the narrative that we're discussing. Okay, so having a clarity of the characters, the character types, the difference, the interplay between them, also the interplay between the antagonists and the protagonists. There seem to be many. So it's one of those ensemble animations where we have many characters on the scene, many heroes, and even many bad guys. So there's a sense in which we need to make them work together. So if that's clear, that's good. Then we need to give them emotional moments in every scene that we go from one to the next to the next. And the build up and the dropping down are equally important. In other words, we have to take off the pedal, the foot off the pedal of the emotional feeling, so that we can build it up again and keep building higher and higher in a way that Generation Z is engaged. So the way we start should be immersing them in action, and the way we end should prepare them and should whet their appetite for the next episode. That's the kind of technical detail I'd want you to understand as we're building up this story. Okay? If that's clear, then we're okay. Yeah, Purity, go ahead.
I do have a question for Nicholas.
Yeah.
There's this part with Kolo. I thought the two ideas were kind of colliding. There's this point where we see him falling when walking in the dump site, and then the ants start rushing towards him. And then at that point, we see him grabbing a jar. He's like collecting and putting the ants inside the jar. He's still laying down. And then over here, he's screaming, help, they're everywhere. So I was thinking and after he's saying help, they're everywhere, we see Joro talking with the ants, everything goes on. And then at the end, we are brought back to him and he's still laying on the ground. So I was wondering, if he was screaming, help, they're everywhere, why would he still be lying down there?
You heard that?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, I had the question. So the idea was it's kind of like a very cartoon moment, like traditional cartoon moment, where when he goes down, the ants cover him. It's like a hill of ants that cover him. And so they grabs the jar from the dump. Actually, well, if he had already grabbed the jar, when he grabs the jar is when they swamp him and they cover him. But then in terms of how we're showing it, we break away from that. Then we show his brother dealing with the ants, and then later on it's kind of like he's in that situation. However, while you're storyboarding, I don't mind if you don't necessarily show him the second type. But then, yeah, that's just how I was thinking about it when I was writing. But it's not a big point, because at that moment, after he's covered with the ants, the focus changes, and then we are now targeting the message. So then the real focus is on Joro, not on Kolo.
Okay, that's interesting. But what I see there is an opportunity to use the opposite nature of what's going on with Kolo, which is funny and it's busy, to introduce a very calm and pensive and serious Njoro. You see what I'm saying? So it's almost like the noise before the calm, like the calm before the noise, that kind of yin and yang thing. So I like that. I like it because it works very well if we can bring it out, make it busy, make it fun, make it interesting, make it hilarious, and then suddenly the things clear up, and suddenly we're in the zone, and we get into the zone by the entry of Joro. So that's a very good John the Baptist moment that Polo is introducing his brother Joro for what he's about to do, but he does it in this kind of way. If we see it that way, then it serves a real purpose in emphasizing Joro, because the fact that this is busy and also the fact that it's playful will make what Joro does seem more calm and even more serious because of what came before it. That's the kind of play I'm thinking of. And so I think it's a good opportunity. We just have to bring it out.
Um, what if
Yeah.
instead of saying help, we see Kolo trying to like act like he cares about his brother coming in where the ants are, but Njoro doesn't actually seem to care about the presence of the ants. So instead of him going help, they're everywhere, maybe he could be like careful, they're everywhere. But then Njoro doesn't have.
Uh-huh. What do you say, Nicola?
Okay, that works, but the at this moment he can't see. He can't. It's like he's sinking. So by the time the ants cover him, all we are seeing is his hand with the jar. Like he's just holding on to the jar. It's almost like you know how in cartoons like you can sink, like it's like he's sinking into the ants almost, like they overwhelm him. So we can't even see him. We just see him putting his hand up and sort of securing the jar to raise questions about why he's so curious about the jar. However, I also think you're right, though. I think that the wordings of what he's saying could be better. Instead of saying help, they're everywhere, maybe we can think of something else that he would be saying that would be more relevant to the situation.
It's a bit of an action scene. And you know, with action scenes, you have to visually tell the story quite intentionally with what the camera is doing and what the actors are doing. So it may need us to have more frames to bring it out. That's what I think might have to happen. So either we're cutting between those frames, or where the camera is moving across those frames. If we treat it as an action scene, then it becomes a bit clearer what we're doing. But have a go. I think Purity, try and solve that problem. If you solve it, then that's great. But I have some creative leeway. It means the script might change, but you know the essence of what Nicholas is saying. So if you understand the essence, then have some creative leeway on how you resolve that, and then we can discuss it. Just the resolution that you've made. I'll also check it out online just to see what you've done, and maybe I can contribute on what you're drawing. Also, we can all draw in that storyboard. We can all draw in it and even type in it. So let's go through it and see what we feel can be sorted out and write notes. There's some sticky notes in the box. You can pick up the sticky notes on Excalibur and write them as comments. Let's do that so that we put comments all over for Purity. And Purity, you can also put comments. Comments are just for us to know, but they're not part of the storyboard really, but they're for us to know what you are thinking at that moment. Okay? All right then. I think that's not bad. Any other thing you want to raise, Purity?
No, maybe in the next meeting.
And Nicholas?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I just wanted to say that I like it. I really like what Spirit has done so far. It's looking, it's starting to bring the visuals to life. So I really like that.
Yes. Yeah, I also think it's good. It's now coming out nice. So we meet. I'd like us to meet, like let's say Sunday, all right, and then again on Thursday, so that we can see how this is unfolding. But I'd like us to all look at it before Sunday, so that when we discuss, we're discussing something that we're familiar with. That way, the conversation will be a bit deeper in terms of narrative. I want us to have a very strong narrative that we all understand when the client comes back. Client comes back in 2 weeks, and then also when the crew comes, because the crew, this crew is going to have almost 15 people. All right. So when they come, we want them to, we want to be able to brief them on something that we can speak about, deeply. And when I say deeply, I mean emotionally and also functionally, so that they can understand the interplay between the emotions and the functions. I'd like the animators to focus and bring out that. Okay, so um, let's have an understanding of it so that we can pass it on to them, and then they can spend time trying to bring it out in their drawings. Okay, so let's meet on Sunday evening. It's tentative. We can always reschedule on WhatsApp, but let's say that for now. I'll create a
What
WhatsApp
time
group.
are you thinking about?
Um, I'm thinking of 7:30. That's the time, but it's tentative. But the same time as today. All right. I'll also create a WhatsApp group for this particular job. I'll do that so that we have, um, you know, a communication channel through WhatsApp. Okay, guys.
So.
So thanks
Okay.
for coming. I can see the next meeting. We have another meeting right now, Nicholas, and I see Vikram has come. Hi, Vikram. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Karibu. Salama.
Santi.
Mm.
Okay, so I think I'll leave then.
Okay. Thanks for your input, Purity.
Okay, thank you.